Hey folks, so today's video is going to be another one of my photoshopping, redesigning, reworking makeup palettes videos, and if you've never seen one of these before, basically I just take some makeup palettes that have been released recently and just mess with them to make them more what I would prefer, and if they made them the way that I made them, maybe I would buy them, I don't know. And I had mentioned in my most recent anti-haul that I wanted to redesign one of the ones I talked about, so we will be doing that one, which is the Gone Matte from Colourpop, as well as the new Too Faced Ethereal palette, which is the one with the butterflies on it, and then the Huda Beauty Lunar New Year Obsessions palette. So we're going to be talking about 3 today. If you haven't seen any of these before, I will leave a playlist of the previous ones below. I've done, God, I don't even know how many of them I've done at this point, but several. And it's basically just a way for me to flex my, not flex, but kind of stretch my Photoshop skills and play around with color and, I don't know, edit down some things. So let's just jump into the first one we are going to be talking about is this Gone Matte palette from Colourpop. And basically what I started out doing, I made an empty layer underneath so I could just delete things. And I went through and literally just deleted colors that were way too close and similar to each other, or didn't have much of a kind of uniqueness. And while this is a palette that is very kind of basic, it is all mattes, it is all nudes, it is all neutrals, I wanted to like condense it. I wanted to make it a bit smaller. So it was originally, I believe, 30 shades, and I cut it down to 18. Theoretically, you could probably cut it down to 12, but I wanted to have the kind of range that it had initially with still keeping some of the different kinds of tones, because that was kind of the appeal of this palette, in that there were these like yellowy tones, these more taupey shades, these more mauvey shades, these pinkier shades, and then the grays and the charcoals. So I wanted to keep those tones intact. So what I'm doing now is just moving things around, rearranging things. I'm dropping this gray one up here. Because I deleted a lot of shades, the kind of perfect lines of colors and tones are not going to be matching up, but I kind of like the effect at the end. I kind of like how it looks, in that it's not like super similar to how it looked before. It's a little bit more interesting to look at, and I think it gives you a little more kind of ideas to go with if you wanted to kind of mix these tones, because I'm a really big fan personally of mixing like charcoals with really warm rusty tones. Love it. Like one of my favorite looks to do was like a bricky red with like a charcoaly black, like bricky red on the top and like a charcoaly black on the bottom, or vice versa. Love it. So this was actually really easy for me to do, and now I'm actually just kind of filling in the colors behind it, so it's not nearly as like splotchy looking, because with how I was cutting things out, I was basically just sampling colors and then just cutting that out. So it's a little bit wonky, but I wanted to make it look as clean as possible, because I don't always do that. So now I'm just making it look like that's the bottom of the palette. Hell yeah, look at that. Look at it. Ooh, magic. I love Photoshop. Photoshop is such a fun tool. It's like this third row down, like the third column, I kind of love, with that kind of charcoal and then that kind of mustardy brown. I like those tones together. You know, I might buy this as a neutrals palette. It might still be a little bit large for me, but I'd be more inclined to buy it. I didn't edit the lid, but you know, it's fine. I didn't even change any of the colors pre-existing, because they're decent tones and it has like a decent depth to it. I just mostly deleted a lot of the super light shades that were very repeated and there wasn't a lot of differentiation between them. So I deleted those and kind of rearranged things. And I think it turned out pretty good. I like it. I think I would, I don't know, I might buy that. I have a lot of neutral mattes, so I don't necessarily need it, but I feel like it's a little bit more interesting to look at than the way it was before. So next, Too Faced. And this is the ethereal palette that I did anti-haul it, and mostly because I feel like the color story that was pre-existing was really similar to stuff that we had seen many times over, not only from Too Faced, but from brands like Colourpop, even ABH. This reminds me a lot of the Amrezy palette with less shimmers, and I wanted to kind of deepen it up quite a bit and spruce it up to make some of the colors a little bit more different and a little bit more interesting. And that big cream shade at the front, I think it's a waste of space. I think it's a waste of time. So I eventually changed the entire color of it. I spent a lot of time working on this greeny turquoise, just kind of messing with the tone and messing with the saturation so that it had depth, but also a lot of like vibrancy, because I think that's something that Too Faced doesn't always do with their eyeshadow palettes. They come out with really cute packaging for a lot of these things, but they don't actually match the same kind of like cute vibrancy on the inside, you know? And then with this shade, what I did, I made it a little bit darker, actually quite a bit darker, and then I changed the tone on here. So I'm using the color balance tool to add some yellow, and then I am using the levels to, again, kind of mess with the tone. And then this darkest one, I am just gonna make it darker. I didn't do a whole lot to it as far as like tonally, but I just made it deeper. And then this pink shade, I again made it darker, and then I did end up editing it a little bit later on in the video, so it doesn't stay the same kind of peachy pink, because I wanted to change it a little bit more than the third shade in on the bottom row. And then this pink, I made it even more pink, and I'm zooming in here a little bit easier to see. I made it a little bit more magenta and darker and brighter because, like I said before, Too Faced is not very good at making vibrant palettes. So that's what we're doing today. This shade I made a little bit darker and a little bit more yellowy tone so that it wasn't quite so like neutral brown. So I made it a little bit more like kind of greeny mustardy kind of undertone, and I think it worked really well. I think it added like a nice kind of contrast to a lot of the shades. I think it would work well with some of the other shades, and it was different. This is the one I changed quite a bit. I didn't mess with like the shade much as far as like making it darker, but there was only these two little green shades, and I wanted to add another lighter bluey green because this shimmer shade and then the bright color needed another one to kind of complement them. And then with this shade, again, just made it a little bit darker, a little more saturated. All right, and then here's what I kind of mess with the pink a little bit more. I add a more kind of cool pink undertone, less of that peachy pink, and I think I left it alone at that point. This one, what did I do with? I think I actually left that one alone. I didn't mess with that kind of third brown over. This lighter pink, this shimmery kind of lilac-y, but also kind of not. I added some more saturation, I added some depth, and I didn't add any duochromes to this palette because I think the second shade and in the first and the second row had kind of a duochrome-y look to them. At least that's what I got. And I think that was it. Yeah, that was what I did with it. I really like this version of it. You can definitely see the difference between the two. Like, it's the same theme and it's the same vibe. It's the same, like, feeling, but this version is just a bit more vibrant, a bit more exciting, a bit more springy, because the other one was just like kind of a whisper of a color, and this one has a lot more like bam, in your face coloring. And I like that the first color, the one that I changed, is essentially the same color as the palette now. Like it. And yeah, no, I like this palette now. Again, I don't know if I would buy it specifically because I have a lot of those like warmy tone shades, but I feel like it's a bit more appealing to more people. So I like it personally. And then last but not least was the Huda Beauty Lunar New Year Obsessions palette. And this was for the Year of the Tiger, for the Lunar New Year. And the outside packaging is actually very gorgeous. I thought the lipstick made a lot of sense, and the packaging itself is super cool. I've always really liked the packaging on these palettes personally. I thought they've been interesting, they've been pretty, they haven't been over the top, and I do like that all of them are the same size, they're the same shape, there's a collection aspect to it that is really easy to organize in my brain, and I do appreciate that about Huda Beauty in that their palettes all are very cohesive with each other. Like, I'm not a Virgo, but I feel like that's like the one thing in my brain that like feels very Virgo. Like, I'm very Gemini, but when it comes to makeup palettes, I feel like I channel Virgo energy for that. But anyway, So with this one, I just added a lot of depth because this version feels very desaturated and very kind of meh. And Temptalia's website actually gave it a good review because as far as I know, the actual like quality of the shadows are not bad. And the color story in and of itself wasn't necessarily a bad color story. It just didn't read very tiger. It didn't have that kind of fierceness and just like intensity that you would expect from something that was like themed around Year of the Tiger. And I just added a ton of vibrancy. I made this orange a lot darker, had a lot more like richness to it, and as well as the red down at the bottom, because those two shades particularly were really kind of more desaturated neutrals. They weren't bad colors, they just didn't fit the theme. And then with this yellow, I made it a bit darker, a little more mustardy, and yeah, that was basically what I did to it. This one wasn't super hard for me either. I think I spent a little less time on this one as well because, like I said, the bare bones, like the bones of it was there. It just didn't quite hit the target, you know? Like that color in the middle, I didn't touch that. I didn't touch the two shimmers in the second row because I think they looked really pretty and I thought that they like complemented the old version and the new version really well. Like that pinky shade is quite nice. And anything I've seen of swatches of the shimmers, they look pretty good. It's just these two gold shades were very kind of muted, and I wanted to make this one a little bit more red toned, so I separated the tones a little bit more. I made this one more red and then the other one a more kind of like pure gold with almost more of a green undertone, so that they were a little bit more different from each other, because as is, they were kind of similar, and with a palette of this size, having two shimmers that are that similar are it's kind of pointless. Like you might as well have a bit more variety within the shimmers. And there's 4. The one in the middle is a duochrome, and then the other 3 are more just kind of traditional metallic shimmers, and they're really pretty from what I've seen. So, and Temptalia gave it an A-, so and I trust Christine's judgment on makeup because she's been doing it forever, like so long. And then last but not least, with this creamy shade, I, again, just added some depth to it. I didn't do a whole lot to it because the other colors in here were more like color heavy, so this one did need kind of like a transition blending out shade. So I just added some depth to it, added a little bit of saturation to it, but nothing too intense. And I'm just playing around with the color here. But I wanted to keep its purpose similar. I think it works all around, and I like this. I think this is, I made this even darker, I think. Yes? Did I make it darker? Yeah, slightly darker. Just a little bit darker. I couldn't leave it as is. But again, I like this version of the palette. I think it's bright. I think it's festive. I think it's vibrant. I think it would work for a lot of people. And it has enough variety to where you could do plenty of looks. And that's one thing I actually did kind of like about the initial palette, in that even though it was kind of muted, there were plenty of tones. Well, kind of. There's more tones now, and there's more separated of tones now where you can get different looks out of it with using the different shimmers, that more kind of like coppery gold, the more yellow gold, that kind of darker maroony thing, and then the pink duochrome in the center. I really like the texture they did on that duochrome. Yeah, I like this palette. I think it's cool. I'd wear it. Yeah, those were all 3. Those were the 3 palettes today. I didn't want to go too ham on a biscuit with these because honestly, there haven't been a ton of like palettes that have come out. There's been a lot of like smaller ones, and I don't have nearly as much fun editing like 5-pan palettes because there's a lot less to work with. And also I tend to let smaller palettes like have a bit more slack because they have a purpose within the makeup industry and they have a purpose within your makeup collection. And I feel like when it's like a smaller, more 4 to 5, even 6-pan palette, it tends to work a little bit better and it tends to not be as bad. There's definitely some brands that do like really bad jobs on small palettes, but I feel like the bigger ones are a little bit easier to fuck up. So If you would like to see any of more of these videos, like I said, there will be a playlist down in the description below. For today's song of the day, let's see, what have I been listening to? Actually, for today's song of the day is Phoebe Bridgers' I Know the End, and I don't have any particular reason why. I've just been playing this a lot in my car and like singing along to it because like I fucking love Phoebe Bridgers, and this was probably my favorite song of 2020. Yeah, probably my favorite song of 2020, I had to think. And I was like, it was either this one or a Run the Jewels song, and it was like real fucking good, and the music video is fantastic, and I love her. Phoebe Bridgers, I desperately want to see her play on tour when things can happen normally again. And thanks for watching, everyone. If you would like to follow me here, please subscribe. That'd be really cool and awesome and funky fresh. Give this video a like if you liked it, and if you would like me to do more of these in the future, I do like doing them. I do have other social media. My Instagram and my Twitter are both Abers07, and then my Twitch is Abers without the 07. So if you would like to follow me there, read my nonsense tweets. I don't tweet nearly as much as I used to, but it's been kind of nice actually. And then Twitch, where I play The Sims mostly, and then sometimes I talk about life and get drunk on New Year's Eve. So, you know, fun times. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a good rest of your day. Have a good rest of your week, and I will see you all on Friday. Bye.